Welcome to Moon and Fire. I'm Emily Bailey, founder of Whole and Wild, where I guide women back to their sacred wisdom through ritual and cyclical living. I'm creating this sacred space for your whole self to be here. Your wisdom, your shadows, your longings, and your fierce power. This is a podcast for women who sense that there's more depth, more magic, more of their untamed essence waiting to be remembered and unleashed. Welcome home, sacred woman. Today I want to talk about something that might challenge everything you've been taught about productivity, purpose, and what it means to do meaningful work in the world. I want to explore what I call resonance work. The practice of attuning to your deepest sense of purpose, learning to recognize your resonant yeses and your dissonant nos, and creating the energetic boundaries that honor what you discover. This is the work of getting intimately connected with what truly moves you, what calls to your soul, and what makes your whole being say yes, this, rather than I should do this. But here's what I've noticed in my years of working with women. We've been taught to believe that resonance work is a luxury. We think it's something we can get to eventually after all the real work is done, after we've checked off all of our productive tasks, after we've met everyone else's needs and expectations. We treat our connection to purpose like a hobby that we'll pursue when we have spare time, which, let's be honest, never actually comes. So what if I told you that this belief is not just wrong, but backwards? What if resonance work isn't a luxury at all, but actually the most productive work available to us? What if learning to trust our resonant yeses and honor our dissonant nos is what unlocks our capacity to walk in our true power and create genuinely generative impact in the world? Today I'm going to explore this profound reorientation. So let me start by defining what I mean by resonance. In physics, resonance occurs when a system vibrates at its natural frequency in response to an external force. So think of a tuning fork. When you strike it, it vibrates at its specific frequency, and if another tuning fork of the same frequency is nearby, it will begin to vibrate too, even without being touched. They're in resonance. Your being has a natural frequency too, a unique vibration that represents your authentic presence, your true purpose, your soul's calling. Resonance work is the practice of learning to recognize when something matches that frequency, when an opportunity, a relationship, a creative project, or a direction creates that feeling of, yes, this is mine to do, deep in your body. This isn't the same as excitement or preference. Resonance is quieter, deeper, and more certain. It's the difference between, I think I should do this, and I cannot not do this. It's the difference between, this would be good for my career, and this feeds something essential in me. Your resonant yes feels like expansion in your body, a sense of opening, of energy flowing, of something settling into rightness. Your dissonant no feels like contraction, a subtle tightening, a sense of misalignment, of something being off, even if you can't quite articulate why. Most of us have learned to override these signals, unfortunately. We've been trained to make decisions based on external logic, what makes sense on paper, what others expect, what seems practical or responsible. We've disconnected from our body's wisdom about what actually aligns with our purpose. Resonance work is the practice of reconnecting with this innate knowing. Now let's address the belief system that keeps us from prioritizing this work. We live in a culture, particularly in the modern Western world, that has very specific ideas about what constitutes real work and productive activity. Real work, we're told, is measurable. It produces tangible outputs. It contributes to the economy. It checks boxes, meets deadlines, generates revenue. It's busy, visible, and can be tracked on a spreadsheet. Resonance work, by contrast, looks like nothing. It might look like sitting quietly and feeling into whether an opportunity aligns with your purpose. It might look like saying no to something lucrative because it doesn't match your soul's frequency. It might look like pausing before responding to ask, does this resonate? Rather than automatically saying yes. In a productivity-obsessed culture, this looks like wasting time. It looks like being indecisive. It looks like a luxury we can't afford when there are bills to pay, deadlines to meet, people depending on us. But here's the radical truth that I want to be exceedingly clear about. When we skip resonance work and just push forward with what seems productive, we end up exhausted, depleted, and often moving in directions that don't actually serve our deepest purpose. We expend enormous amounts of energy doing things that don't align with our true work in the world. Think about it. How much time have you spent on projects that drained you? How many relationships have you invested in that left you feeling hollow? How many opportunities have you pursued because they looked good on paper, only to discover that they took you further from your authentic path? That's what happens when we skip resonance work. We mistake activity for progress, busyness for productivity, and visible output for meaningful impact. Now, I want to acknowledge something important because while resonance work is essential rather than luxury, there are systemic barriers that make this work incredibly difficult for many women to access. I've spent years working alongside families navigating what researcher Ruby Payne calls the culture of poverty, the specific relational, emotional, and practical patterns that emerge when people are focused on survival. The truth is that when you're exhausted from working multiple shifts, when every choice is about immediate survival rather than alignment, and when the capacity to honor your dissonant no's feels tricky because you need any income at all, what is required for this kind of commitment is bone deep courage that requires being surrounded by a supportive community in order to enact it. And here's what I've also witnessed, even in survival contexts, even when choices feel incredibly limited, the capacity for resonance remains alive within you. It might express differently. It might be choosing which of the two jobs that both pay the bills leaves you feeling slightly less depleted. It might be noticing which relationships drain versus nourish you, even when you can't change your circumstances immediately. And it might be tiny moments of attunement within severely constrained options. But the truth is that resonance work belongs to all of us, regardless of our economic circumstances. It's not reserved for women with financial cushions or flexible schedules. Your body's wisdom about what aligns with your purpose doesn't disappear because you're navigating survival. Though I deeply honor that accessing and acting on that wisdom becomes exponentially harder when the stakes are so high. For many women, developing this resonance muscle, though, learning to recognize opportunities that truly align versus those that perpetuate patterns of depletion, learning to say no to what doesn't serve even when it's terrifying, learning to trust the wisdom of your own knowing about what's truly generative for you, this actually becomes part of the path itself. Not a prerequisite for the path, but woven into the journey of claiming your power and your purpose. So whether you're navigating survival realities or have economic breathing room, whether you're facing systemic barriers or relative privilege, this work is for you. This practice might look different based on your circumstances. The pace might be different. The support you need might be different. But your resonance, your purpose, your sacred knowing, that belongs to you and it's calling you home. So let me explain why I believe resonance work is not just productive, but actually the most productive work available to us. When you're aligned with your resonance, when you're doing work that genuinely matches your purpose and frequency, several things happen. First, your energy is renewable rather than depletable. Work that aligns with your resonance might be challenging, but it doesn't drain you in the same way that misaligned work does. You can sustain it longer. You recover faster. You don't wake up dreading it. Second, your impact is exponentially greater. When you're operating from genuine alignment, your work carries a different quality. It's infused with your authentic essence. People can feel the difference between someone doing work they should do versus work they're called to do. Your resonance creates resonance in others. Third, you make better decisions. When you're attuned to your resonance, you develop an internal compass that guides you toward opportunities that serve your purpose and away from distractions that would take you off course. This saves enormous amounts of time and energy. Fourth, you attract aligned opportunities. This might sound woo-woo, but I've witnessed it repeatedly. When you're clear about your resonance and willing to honor it, opportunities that match your frequency begin to find you. You stop having to force, convince, or hustle for work that doesn't fit. Fifth, and perhaps most importantly, resonance work moves you forward through thresholds. It allows you to learn and integrate the lessons of the chapter you're in so that you can receive what's next. Again, a threshold is this place between chapters. When you're moving from one season of your life into the next, it's that in-between space where you're not quite there yet and it's time for you to complete one thing and move into the next. Resonance work allows you to actually move through that rather than get stuck in that space. It creates the genuine capacity for transformation rather than just rearranging your circumstances. Think about the times in your life when you've made significant shifts, when you've crossed from one season into another, when you've stepped into new versions of yourself. These transitions almost always required you to attune to what was resonant, to trust something deeper than external logic, and to follow a knowing that couldn't always be justified on paper. Resonance work is productive because it's how we navigate the sacred passages of our lives. It's how we move from where we are to where we're meant to be. It's how we discover and step into our true work in the world. Once you begin recognizing your resonant yeses and your dissonant nos, the next layer of work is creating energetic boundaries that honor what you've discovered. This is where many women struggle. We can feel the resonance or dissonance, but we override it because we don't want to disappoint others, or we're afraid of the consequences of honoring our truth. Creating energetic boundaries means learning to say, this doesn't resonate with me, so I'm going to decline, even though it looks like a good opportunity. This relationship feels misaligned, so I'm going to create distance, even though it will be uncomfortable. This direction feels right in my body, so I'm going to follow it, even though I can't fully explain it. These boundaries aren't about being rigid or closed off. They're about protecting your energy and attention so that you can give them to what truly aligns with your purpose. They're about trusting your resonance enough to let it guide your choices. This is particularly challenging for women because we've been socialized to prioritize others' needs, to be accommodating, to say yes even when everything in us is saying no. Learning to create boundaries around our resonance often means unlearning lifelong patterns of people-pleasing and self-abandonment. But here's what I've discovered. When you honor your resonance and create boundaries to protect it, you don't become selfish or closed off. You actually become more generous and open because you're giving from a place of genuine alignment rather than depleted obligation. So I want to connect resonance work to something I've been exploring deeply in my own life and with the women I guide. The sacred passages that we move through as we transition from one chapter to another. These thresholds, whether into motherhood, new career directions, relationship changes, or just different seasons of life, are moments when our old operating systems often stop working. What got us here won't get us there. The logic of our previous chapter doesn't apply to our next one. Resonance work becomes absolutely essential at these threshold moments. It's how we discern what wants to come with us into the new chapter and what wants to be released. It's how we recognize opportunities that serve our emerging self versus those that would keep us tethered to who we've been. I'm offering a free workshop next Thursday called Sacred Passage that explores exactly this. How to navigate life's major transitions with wisdom, ritual, and the kind of attunement we've been discussing today. We'll explore how to recognize when you're at a threshold, how to honor the liminal space between chapters, and how to cross with clarity and sacred authority. So if what we're talking about today resonates with you, and if you're sensing that you're in or approaching a significant transition, I really want to invite you to join me for this workshop. You can register at wholeandwild.com/sacred passage workshop. The link will also be available in the show notes. Because here's what I know. Resonance work is what allows us to move through these sacred passages with grace rather than resistance. It's what helps us release what no longer serves and receive what's trying to emerge. It's what transforms transitions from something to survive into initiations that deepen our power and clarity. So before we close, I want to offer you a simple ritual that you can begin using today to develop your resonance muscle. This isn't elaborate or time-consuming. It's something that you can integrate into moments you already have. I call it the resonance check-in, and it works like this. Before making any decision, whether accepting an invitation, pursuing an opportunity, or simply choosing how to spend your afternoon, pause for just a moment. Place one hand on your heart and one on your belly, connecting with your body's wisdom. Take 3 deep breaths, letting your awareness settle into your center. Now bring to mind the decision that you're considering. As you hold it in your awareness, notice. Does your body expand or contract? Does your breath deepen or shorten? Do you feel a sense of opening or closing? Does energy move toward this option or away from it? You're not analyzing or thinking about it. You're simply feeling into the resonance or dissonance in your body. Then ask yourself one simple question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much does this resonate with my deepest purpose right now? Trust the first number that comes. Don't second guess it or try to logic your way to a different answer. Anything below a 7 is a dissonant no, even if it looks good on paper, even if you should want it. 8 or above is a resonant yes, something that genuinely aligns with your purpose and deserves your energy. 7 is the interesting middle ground. It might be worth exploring further, or it might be a not yet. So after you've done this check-in, honor what you discovered. If you can't immediately act on the information, if circumstances require you to say yes to something that registered as dissonant, at least acknowledge the truth of what you felt. The acknowledgement itself is powerful. It keeps the resonance muscle active even when you can't fully follow it yet. Over time, as you practice this simple ritual, you'll find that your capacity to recognize and trust your resonance grows stronger. What once felt subtle or uncertain becomes clearer and more reliable. Your internal compass gets recalibrated. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, this sounds beautiful, but when am I supposed to do this? I barely have time to breathe, let alone pause for resonance check-ins throughout my day. I hear you. And next week, we're going to explore exactly how to make resonance work accessible in the everyday, how to braid it into your existing routines, how to stack it on top of practices that you're already doing, how to integrate it so seamlessly that it becomes as natural as breathing. We'll explore what I call doorway practices, simple moments of attunement that you can weave into transitions you're already making. I'll show you exactly how. As we come to the close of our time together, I want to leave you with this. Your resonance is not a luxury. Your attunement to purpose is not something to get to eventually after all the real work is done. Your capacity to recognize and honor what aligns with your deepest truth is actually the most productive, most generative, most transformative work you can do. The world doesn't need more of your depleted, misaligned hustle. It needs your resonant yes. It needs what you came here to offer when you're operating from genuine alignment rather than should-driven obligation. This week, I invite you to practice the resonance check-in ritual that we explored. Start small. Use it for 1 or 2 decisions. Notice what you discover. Pay attention to what your body knows that your mind might be trying to override. And if you're sensing that you're at a threshold, that you're in or approaching a sacred passage from one chapter to another, join me next Thursday for the Sacred Passage Workshop. Let's explore together how resonance work becomes the key to navigating life's transitions with wisdom and grace. May you trust the wisdom of your resonance. May you honor the truth that your body knows. May you create boundaries that protect your alignment. And may you discover that your most productive work feels like coming home to yourself. Remember the sacred cycles. Reclaim your radiant fire. Unleash your intuitive magic. Thank you so much for being here, Sacred Woman. Until next time.